Hi, I'm Brendan Mills from CFO Dynamics, and in today's video, I want to take you through why the system might show that you sell an item for 100% gross profit. Now, as much as we'd like to joke about it and for it to be the case in the real world that you sell an item for 100% gross profit, the reality is it's almost impossible to sell something without a cost being associated to it. So what I'd like to take you through today is the process of how that happens. So at the very least, you understand why it happens and what you can do to prevent it from happening in the future. Or if you willingly want to continue this way, because sometimes in real world practice, you have to actually do things in the way that they're not intended to be to satisfy the client or for some other reason. So at least then you can go, all right, this is what happens. And then after the fact, you can go, I need to rectify this accordingly as a result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through two examples. One is going to be for a bill of materials, and one is also going to be for a general stock item. So if I go into my sales orders, what I'm going to do first of all is on today's date, sorry, beg your pardon, for Edward Jones, on today's date, we're going to do a motor assembly, which is a bill of materials. I'm going to sell it for $1,500, and we've got a gas bottle, which was going to have the same back order, which I'll talk about. So the reason this back order, I'm going to override this, is the simple reason that a lot of systems in the real world, maybe like your system as well, is you ignore the back orders, or you have that process turned off for the reason I'm sharing with you at the moment, is because of the timing of things. You don't want to be held up, or the way you do things within the system, you don't want them to be being held up because of Exo. You just want to go ahead and process it and then rectify it at a later point in time. So I'm intentionally saying no to those items, and we're going to sell it for $100. So if I do a quick supply on these, and what I'm going to do just for demonstration purposes is I'm actually just going to date this for February. And we're going to supply all picked, invoiced all supplied, post the stock movements, post the invoice, and I'm not going to tick printing the invoice itself. Add on some freight, and looks like the invoice date has gone through anyway on that date, which is the 23rd, or 27th, sorry, of the 3rd. Now, if I go into the maintained stock items, as big one, the stock sales for these items, as that's loading up, and if I do it for the month of March, now you might see a couple of the test items that I entered through before, is you will see that the items, we've sold 2 of them for $100 with 100% margin on them. And if I close out of there and go back in to my stock sales report and run the exact same report for March for the motor assembly, you'll see the exact same issue. So 100% margin. And the reason for that is when I actually go into the stock code, if I go into the stock code, and I'll just use the gas bottle one as the example, it's got the 2 that we've sold, but there's no cost associated with it. So if I go into purchase these items, and I'll just get them from a single supplier, and we'll buy, say, 10 of those for $15 each. And we're going to do all of it in one go. So bearing in mind the other item is a bill of materials. Complete this. And fast forward and process all the costings. So for $150, and we may as well finish the invoice while we are in here. And now, if I go back into that stock sales report, what do you think is going to have happened for that gas bottle? And while that's loading, is with the gas bottle, you will notice it's still 100% GP. And that is because the item was purchased after the invoice had been entered in the system. The process is exactly the same with the bill of materials. With your bill of materials, if you create the bill of materials after, so we're going to have motor assembly just here. If I just go in here and, beg your pardon, go to the wrong place at the moment. If I go in and create a works order, go new and put in my motor assembly, and let's say I'm going to produce 3 of them, load the components, and I'll talk to you more about this process in another video, and then set the quantities to used, process those, post the transactions, and then go back and run my sales report last of all. For the month of March, and go back and look at my motor assembly. You'll see in here it's still selling for 100% margin. But if I go ahead now and do another item, but what we're going to do this time is we're going to try and sell it in February, just so we can isolate those transactions. This is a bit of a risk because I'm not sure if this will work perfectly as I intend, but we invoice date, just fly through this quickly. Gas bottle, we're going to sell for $100, and then we've got one motor assembly, so one of those for $1,000 in the month of Feb. Save that, put on the freight, and I'll just cancel that for now. Won't worry about printing the invoice. But if I run the stock sales report for the month of February for those stock items, so pick the right month, go in here, gas B and gas B, load that up. Now all of a sudden it has the value and it has the cost. Now, why did I choose February as the date compared to March, which it originally was? This is to demonstrate the point that as long as there is a cost in the system, that is what the system will take as the value for that item from a cost of goods sold perspective. So even though I didn't enter that until March and entered this invoice in February, the two items still match up with one another. And that's the same with the bill of materials. As well, if I could show you quickly now with the motor assembly. So as soon as you have an item which you have manufactured before, and there you go, you can see you got your cost in there as well. As soon as you have an item that you've manufactured before or purchased in the past and you go to sell it, you will get a cost in there. Now, how accurate that cost is really depends on how accurately you follow the system. But the most important thing is especially the first time you sell an item, you have to include a cost associated with it. Otherwise, it'll sell for 100% GP. This is also important as well with items that might be sold as one-off line items. They're going to have no cost associated with them as well. So you want to minimize your use of one-off stock codes or also just generic codes, which are a bit of a dumping ground for selling items. Hope you enjoyed the video. If there's any topics that you would like to see added to the library that we have on our website, please let us know. We'll be happy to do them, and we'll talk to you soon.